The best answer I can give you in that short amount of time. I don't want to take too much more time. If you'd like to talk more, we can. At the end of the evening, I'll be happy to try to give you some more information. Thank you for the question.
Yes, my name is Simon Polakowski. I'm just a concerned citizen. This man, Mr. Colonel Lanning?
Yes, sir.
A colonel is only a colonel. There are many ranks above a colonel. I believe that the Air Force should send the commander of the Air Force. He's coming here next month. I believe he needs to come and address this issue. I also believe the new Secretary of the Air Force should be here, and we should get direct input from those two individuals. And we should also demand that the Secretary of Defense also come here and make statements that they will sign to. That they will take responsibility. This gentleman's only a colonel, and he's only going to be here, till he's done. And if you go to the Pentagon, there are more stars there than the Milky Way. So you think about a colonel. Also, you were asking us to trust you, sir. The Air Force, unfortunately, has a long history of deception. They took orders from a president and waged a secret war in Cambodia. They've had procurement problems, many issues, especially with Lockheed Martin. I've got books here I'd like to show you. I also like to refer to the Air Force mission is to destroy its supposedly known and perceived enemies. They're not in the business of environmental cleanup. They need oversight. If I went to the Air Force gate and I threw a gallon of some toxic element over the gate, how long would I live for? Let the Air Force be treated like the rest of us are treated. We publish photographs of people who commit property crimes in Albuquerque. How big a photograph of the ones who have committed these crimes in Albuquerque should there be published so we can see who these commanders were, how much was released under their command, who's in charge of this. If it's 24 million gallons, this is a convoy of 10,000 gallon tanker trucks that would stretch from Albuquerque to Berlin, nose to nose. You do the math. I've done it already. Who's responsible for this? They've been living out of this. They have no fiscal responsibility. You can't run a business this way. They would have gone out of business a long time ago. Now they're going to be back in non-government pocketbooks demanding that we clean it up, because they're not going to clean it up. Anybody who pays taxes is going to clean it up. They live off of taxes. It's not coming out of their pockets. So people, this is what I'm asking. There's a history. I believe that people should, you got to keep coming back. You can't just show up once and go away. You got to tell people. You got to keep going to these meetings. You have to be vigilant. You can never allow yourself the luxury of feeling comfortable anywhere at any time, any place, because this is what happens. Please read this book called Fire on the Lake, page 352, what Herman Kahn said about how they could corrupt the people of Vietnam. A certain segment of our citizens here in Albuquerque have been corrupted by the Air Force because they have acted like Maslows' dog. That's how every time the Air Force opened their spending book, they were there. Thank you.
My name is Marie Ennis. I have a question about when the NMD has blessed the RFI, when you come up with an acceptable one, who's going to, and you're starting remediation for, especially on the data, so who's going to pay for it? Where is the money going to come from? And how fast can it be gotten to the site?
After we have approved our RFI and we move to corrective measures evaluation, but the Air Force will be paying for the remediation. It's a complicated answer with regard to how that is funded, but there's a set-aside set of funds that are dedicated just for environmental issues, and then that money flows to us in order to pay for the necessary remediation. We only have about 12 minutes before the building closes, so if you have questions, please raise your hand so we can make sure we get
anybody still who has not asked the first question. Okay.
My name is Jess Young. My concern is
Does anybody in this room know of any national precedents for cleaning up EDP contamination in aqueous plumes? I read an article sent by Dave McCoy of the Citizens Action Group. It was a peer-reviewed article. Having said that, I'm not a scientist. The article stated that there were no known methodologies for remediating or cleaning up EDP in an aqueous plume. Does anybody know if there are any precedents for this nationally or internationally?
There's several folks that are raising their hand to answer that. There are, and I'm not sure specifically with regard to your question, because there are some. It depends what you mean by cleanup. I'm going to assume that you mean effective cleanup that occurs solely underground and does not involve pumping the water up and filtering it. Because that does happen. In fact, in Santa Fe, there was an article that was just in the Albuquerque Journal that talked about in Santa Fe they have an EDP plume, and they pump the water up, they run it through a filtration system that goes into the public drinking water supply. So that's done in Santa Fe. There are other instances as well, and we just we're closely watching another EDP plume that's over on the East Coast, where they're having some new successes with some new technologies. Because that's why a lot of times we're talking about things that we're planning and that we are going to move forward with, and folks are like, that doesn't work. Well, it hasn't worked in the past, it's true, but we're aggressively monitoring other sites that are looking at similar issues and taking advantage of their effectiveness, and where they've had success, we want to leverage that and apply that here as well. So I don't know if somebody has a short, quick answer to an example of that, but does anyone have another example that we can share with us? Lady back here. All right. Well, I'll talk to you afterward, and we'll see if we can't. If I make sure I understand exactly what you're talking about, and then we'll get you an answer with regard to your specifics.
So this is Dave McCoy. Some of the focus has been on, well, it might not arrive for 30 years, but you know, during that period of time and right now, 80% of this plume of ethylene dibromide is off the base. Now, if the city of Albuquerque wanted to use that water, the most productive portion of the aquifer in Albuquerque, it would be unavailable for our use. A half teaspoon of ethylene dibromide will contaminate about 9 million gallons of water. We don't know how many millions of gallons of aviation gas there were that had one of those half teaspoons in every gallon.
Does anybody else have any first questions? Has not asked a question.
Back at a second question.
Okay, so we'll have short second questions. Please, Stephen Short, we're running out of time.
I'm Dr. Robin Falco, Health Freedom Rights. My radio show is Event Horizons, and what they don't want you to know. I have a real simple example. I'm sitting here and listening. As a physician, if you come to me with a life-threatening condition, and I'll be generous, I won't take 20 years, I'll take 10 years to determine how you should be treated. What do you think your odds of survival would be? Would that be a satisfactory approach to let somebody die or, you know, just worsen that period of time? That's a parallel to what we have here, and nothing being done.
I want to thank everyone for coming, especially, I know a lot of folks have left already, but for those of you who stayed for the entire time, again, thank you very much. Your participation in this process is vital. We do take the information that we get here, the questions that are asked here, we pursue those, and your participation is very important. It's part of what makes our country great, so please continue to come, continue to ask tough questions, and again, thank you all for coming. Please be safe tonight. Thank you.